Ovinu, Ovinu, Malkeinu.
That's the sound of traditional Jewish worship music. It's slow, reverent, and kind of what you'd expect to hear in the Hasidic community. But backstage at a music venue in Manhattan, New York City, a group of Jewish men dressed all in black suits, wearing the traditional large hats often seen in the Jewish community, are warming up for a concert. The group is being led by a man called Lipa Schmeltzer, and he's dressed slightly different. His suit jacket has patterns and is a bit more vibrant. He's wearing trendy circular glasses, and these are the first hints you get that this Jewish singer might be a little bit different.
Please help us welcome to the stage, Lipa Schmeltzer!
Lipa Schmeltzer is a Hasidic pop star from New York who has become a bit of an icon among the younger generation in the Hasidic community. I've travelled an hour outside New York City to a small and beautifully scenic spot in Jersey where Lipa now lives.
Hey!
Lipa, how are you? Inside, Lipa is painting on a huge canvas while music plays in the background. The canvas is covered in colours and textures and patterns. It's a visual representation of his music and his personality too.
It's beautiful. Look at this. This is a painting I'm basing on the rhythm and the feeling and the emotion and the color of the song. I'm visualizing the tune, and it relaxes my brain, my hands, and it takes my soul to a higher level.
Lipa grew up in New Square, an all-Hasidic village north of New York City.
I tell you that I had a very difficult childhood in terms of fitting in terms of focusing, in terms of being like everybody else. It was always a struggle. I come from a family with 12 siblings, 6 boys, 6 girls. I'm the 11th in the family. So you could imagine I had to wait till one of my brothers got married at age 20 something, which was considered a very old age in the place where I come from, where most people married age of 18. And I slept in a crib until he got married so I can get his bed. We had a very small house, 1 bathroom.
Lipa has fond memories of growing up with his siblings in that busy household. But as he got older and started to realise what was expected of him in the community, that's when he started to feel different.
It was difficult for me because there was a very rigid system of what people need to grow up to be, and I couldn't master the level of what my father had anticipated for me to grow. He wanted me to be a rabbi, he wanted me to sit and learn all day, which I did at the time, but I couldn't focus for the world. And as more the teachers told me to focus, the more it backfired and I couldn't focus.
In school, Lipa was finding it hard to focus on his Judaic studies, all of which were in Yiddish and Hebrew, and was constantly looking out the window, his mind elsewhere.
I know that I was daydreaming, and I want to say that I think that the reason is because I wanted to get away. And as a child, we develop a place where I can run away without running away.
Did this annoy your father, let's say, who wanted you to study the whole time and become a rabbi and a scholar? He didn't like the idea that you were looking out the window daydreaming.
So my father didn't understand necessarily what daydreaming is. He was very naive in his own world, but he understood that I'm not knowing the Talmud very well. And I was just not having patience to focus. And at that time, they called it a schwache Kopf. That means like a weak head. There was once a circle of 27 children in 1 year in the class, and one table in the middle for 3 kids, and it was called the klotz table. You know, I was sitting there like
this is like the dumb table or something, is it?
Yeah, dumb table. And it was like, but then
what was that like, sitting at the dumb table in the middle of the class? Because you knew what you were sitting at a table that was different to the other children.
It was humiliating. Like if I tell you I'm 41 years old, if I remember this at 41 years old, it shows it's in my subconscious. It's there.
Lipa's father had his best interests at heart, but the family situation was strained. His father worked in a post office, but since he had 12 children, found it hard to support them on the salary he made. His father was also a Holocaust survivor, and Lipa thinks the Holocaust may be the reason for his large family.
This could be the reason why my father's age all wanted to have 12, 15, 16 children. It was right after they lost 12, 15, 16 children. My father lived the Holocaust his entire life. He didn't have to talk about it. He didn't have to tell me. He relived the ghetto all his life. I remember my father worked in the post office, and I like the peanut butter sandwiches, which doesn't have, I like the inside, I like to eat the soft part of the bread.
Without the crust.
Without the crust. And then my father packed it. This is what he took for his lunch.
He'd bring the crust to work with him and eat that, yeah.
And I think that this goes back to what he went through. Like he would always say, in the Alterheim, in the old home, we would be fighting over such a piece of bread, and you have it. So this is kind of what I was growing up with. My father, I miss him terribly. He was a very holy man, and I loved him very much. But the dialogue was a one track. It was like talking about the Bible, I couldn't really make him understand, even later years, what I want and what I really want. It was, listen, this is how it's supposed to be.
Each day in school, only 40 minutes were devoted to studying maths and geography and other mainstream subjects. The rest of the entire day was religious or Judaic studies. And in the ultra-Orthodox community that you grew up in, that was very strict, and there was one school you studied all day. Your Judaic studies were in Yiddish and Hebrew?
It was Yiddish, and the Hebrew is modified, meaning it's old Hebrew. It's not the Hebrew that we know today that they speak in Israel.
But no English?
No English, no English.
No English at all?
No, I wasn't taught. 2 years of my life I was taught alphabets, ABC. I remember my most famous saying I knew in English, and I wanted to speak to a carpenter or to a mailman, would be like, what's your name? What's your name?
That's all you knew, what's your name?
All I knew.
When Lipa was 9 years of age, his life was to change forever when he discovered music and his talent for singing. You see, Lipa's older brother produced children's music, again traditional songs of worship, and one day he needed a new singer, and he brought Lipa to the studio to record him singing, and his father begrudgingly approved. Because anything that was a distraction from the religion was looked down upon and frowned upon in the strict community.
Yeah, and then what is if I'm going to go to the studio? Then I'll see the engineer, and then I'll get into music. That will take away my mind. Then I'll daydream even more. So my father didn't want me to go, but for his own son, meaning my older brother, he went out of his way and said, okay, if Zisha makes an album, you can go sing. And I went to the studio, and that was like a whole new beginning. It opened my mind, and I couldn't wait. Anytime I'll go back to the studio. And
what was it you liked about it?
First of all, it was it was expressionistic. I was able to I heard the song and I said, can I do a harmony? This was like really old fashioned, like hey boy ra yo ilam bekinyan shlavava.
So, as a 9-year-old boy, Lipa would sing at the recording studio for his brother's albums. But being in that studio and singing into the microphone gave Lipa a way to express himself, something he had never experienced before.
Yeah, so that's what I was singing until I was a bar mitzvah boy. And then later on I started writing, or maybe even earlier, I started writing lyrics.
When Lipa came to his bar mitzvah age, that is the age in Judaism when they believe a boy starts to become a man, he started to write his own songs about things in his family and community. And the whole time your father was discouraging you from the music because, again, he saw this as a distraction for what he wanted you to ultimately become, a rabbi and a scholar. But you were hooked at that stage, is it fair to say?
It's interesting because at that time, this is what I wanted. So when I told you before I wanted to be a little bit different, it's glimpses. It's a little bit different than my father would hope me to be.
When Lipa was 20, his father and another man arranged his marriage. He met a girl around his age, having never met her before, and 25 minutes later, they were married.
you know, maybe this can be a match. And then we met like for 25 minutes and that was the end of it.
Lipa was married and then started working in a butcher's. He was singing on the side at weddings and different Jewish events, and remember, he was in a Hasidic community that was largely cut off from the rest of the world. You were 21, you were working at a butcher's, you were delivering for them and driving the van, but in the van they had a what, Lipa?
A radio station. It was the first time I had access to a radio. There was no CD player, tape recorder, and I couldn't live without music.
And what was it like when you turned on, you were just used to Hasidic music up until now, you turned on the radio in the butcher's van, and what did you hear coming out of it?
So there was like a song, I need to know, oh, I need to know, die, did I die, da 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 da. There was a song, I Turn to You, and I took it, first of all, it was ugly for me, but then I needed the music and I couldn't, then I got hooked on these songs and I couldn't let it go.
Lipa started taking traditional songs from his community and religion and sang them in a more modern and upbeat way. And this was causing a split in the community. Those who thought it was exciting and modern, and those who believed it was disrespectful and dangerous for the community.
Mizrach, Mizrach, Marev, Marev, Lemalo, Lemato, Lemalo, Lemato, Durem, Durem.
And so cool people, cool Hasidim, were like, wow, I want you to do that by my child's wedding. But then other people said, oh, I can't have Lipa do this by my child's wedding. That's I don't want him to do that. You're mixing in modern beats. Then I published a letter excusing myself, I'll never do it again. But of course, then I did.
Lipa was excited about the modern music he was releasing, but then his father and the rabbis would pull him aside and tell him that it was all going to be for nothing, and that all he needed really was the Bible, not the music.
Lipa, when are you gonna stop? When are you gonna stop doing this? You're embarrassing yourself and the community. The Rebbe would keep on telling me, naming other singers that are like rabbis, telling me, I want you to be like this rabbi singer. I want you to be big by the real or by the righteous people, not by the cool people, because that's not good for you in the other world. And he was trying to convince me, and then I really said, yes, right, I'm gonna really try, I promise. I felt when I was beaten up by people, by certain activists, that everybody hates me. And this brought up the little child in me, the little bullied child in school. What am I hearing? I'm belonging on a dumb table. I'm hearing again the teacher in school telling me you're not gonna grow out nothing. You're like a loser. And I really tried. And then I fell back. I was like, I want to express myself.
Why couldn't you stop? You're laughing now. Why couldn't you stop?
I don't know. It was just impulsive. Like 4 weeks later, I came up with this great song, and I'm like, there's no way I'm not giving out that song. You know?
There's no way I'm not recording these beats.
Exactly, and I need to talk about this.
I didn't see you in ages, it seems to me contagious. You're going through some stages, the phone makes you outrageous. It locks you up in cages, unlike our stages. Can you hang up the phone?
Lipa was writing songs not just about the Jewish community, but about problems in society at large, like this song, Hang Up the Phone, about our addiction to smartphones.
Can you hang up the phone? Can you hang up the phone?
The more he recorded, the more popular he became with the younger Jewish community, and Lipa found himself in a bind. Younger members of the Jewish community crying out for more music, CDs and concerts, and the older generation telling him he was on a path which was leading him away from heaven.
Enjoying life is almost like a sin.
And the fear was, the rabbis thought, well, if the young people listen to this music with its secular influence, they might start dancing, then maybe they'll go to clubs, and then God knows what that'll lead to. Was that the kind of mentality?
Yes, that's still the mentality by the leaders, that everything can lead to the next thing, which will lead to the next thing, which will lead to the next thing. And I was the first one to really open up, to take songs not about prayers all the time, but also lyrics, talk about why people run after money all the time and why people are fake, opening up feelings that was not talked about in the community. And I think that the internet came out at the same time, contributed to the fact that they saw Lipa videos. I came out before YouTube. You have to think about this. It was like when YouTube came out and my clip started, I was the first one in the Jewish world to have this.
Because of the reach of YouTube, his videos started getting millions of hits, and he was labelled the Lady Gaga of the Jewish world. As time went on, Lipa started to see his talent as a gift from God and that he should be a role model for young Hasidic children.
As time goes by, with a lot of therapy, a lot of help, I'm realizing this is my little child. There could be hundreds of thousands of Hasidim who really admire Lipa and they love Lipa, and that I need to be there for them. God gave me a gift for these people.
Lipa's father passed away 2 years ago, and even though he disapproved of Lipa's music right up until his death, Lipa was able to tell him that he loved him.
I called my father and he was already not well, and I said, just want to talk to you. You know, I kind of stuttered. I said, I'm going to a certain therapy and I just want to close some unfinished things. You know, you never kissed me, but you didn't know better. Your father died and you loved me so much and you really want to do everything for me. And that's how I said it. And he was listening to me and he said, yeah, and I said, I want to love you and I know that you really love me. And he said, we know, you don't need therapy for this. And that was the end of the conversation. But 2 weeks later, he passed.
What age was your father when he passed away?
88.
And so he lived long enough to see your huge success all over the world. Was he proud of you on some level?
So that's the thing. You say he lived to see my success. And when he passed away, I feel I cried so much for like a long time. And so I said, you know what? It bothered him so much. And I went to the hospital with him. I loved him. I came to the realization that I have to grieve. But even before, I have to grieve childhood. I have to grieve certain things I didn't have. You need validation from a parent. And my father didn't give me that. He said, you don't need that. You need the Bible. I will never get that from him. And that's just him. But I can give this to my kids and it's okay. He gave me love in a different way. He did tell me of my songs, certain songs, how beautiful it is. He did tell me how much he liked certain songs I wrote, if they were very Hasidic songs. And he skipped on the other songs. He didn't even listen to that. But the serious songs, he did tell me, I love that song. Can you sing me that song?
At his father's graveside, Lipa sang a traditional Jewish song. Although he doesn't live in the Orthodox Hasidic community anymore, Lipa is still very involved and has toned down his music a bit to make it fit in a bit more while still being true to his style and the messages he wants to get across. Lipa, put it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and let's all focus on positivity and making the world a better place, a peaceful place, a loving place, a happy place.